Welcome to the first guest episode of Living the Questions. I am so excited for this. The guest episodes that we're up to this season are such juicy, wonderful deep dives, big, impactful, important questions that we're living into. Ooh, I am so excited for you to get to hear them and to hear what comes through for you as different questions come up as you're listening. And this is the first one that kicks it off. I am really honored to introduce you to my dear friend Chad Brown, who, if you have never met, I'm so excited for you to meet. And if you have, I'm so excited for you to deepen in this conversation. He is a tremendous human, just so much heart and really comes at life with such honest curiosity, with a continuation of coming back to see things from grounded places, of loving all out, of honesty with self and other, just a ton of integrity. So I am so honored for you to get to hear from him and the questions that he is currently living into and how he's navigating those. Such beautiful and yeah, deep, deep questions that are big ones in this life, that, talk about the things that we're here to do in this world, and do they matter, and what is our purpose, and how does that contribute to another? How does our life contribute to another? Yeah, and are we showing up for that fully? And what does that look like? And when big things, big life things come up in this world, like death and grief, what matters then? And how does that reshape how we view the world and what we're here for and what we want to get up to and how we're showing up for this brief time period that we're here from what we know? And are we giving ourselves grace in that journey, in that discovery of what that looks like, in that unfolding as we live into life and the experiences it brings us and the ways that it deepens this question further and further? Yeah, I mean, there's a million more questions that come up through this episode, and I'm so excited for you to get to hear them and be in them and have your own questions come up from the way that you personally experience this conversation. So, invitation here to take really good care in these conversations, and as you're listening, with what comes up for you. How do you take good care of you in this conversation? And that will be the continued question of this podcast series and beyond, and your conversations beyond. So let's get to it. I am just so excited for you to listen in. Without further ado, I introduce you to my dear friend, Chad Brown, and this beautiful conversation that he so generously gifted to this podcast. Welcome to Living the Questions. Today I have the honor of chatting with Chad Brown. I'm so grateful for this time with you. And instead of introducing you through what you do for a living, I would love to hear from you what makes your heart most come alive, what makes you feel like most yourself.
What makes me feel like most myself? Wow, that's a great question. It's moments of connection.
Mm.
I notice as I look at like the arc of my life and like particularly the arc of my career, what I am starting to notice and embrace is that connection is the backbone through all of it. And I'm in like a really vulnerable spot in my life right now, and I've been here a couple of times, and I recognize it, and and it's like it's one of those moments where it's like, okay, what are you up to? What are you missing? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What value are you adding? Those are like the questions that are on repeat in my head right now, and I keep coming back to connection and causing connection, both for myself and then for other people in meaningful ways, in authentic ways, in not so beautiful, packaged ways. And that's when I feel most alive is when, and I think that's universal. I don't think that's unique to me, but when I'm truly connected to somebody, and even just like you popping up on this screen today, it was like, oh my gosh, my old friend that all I wanted to do was just catch up.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me feel most alive.
Mm. Oh, I love that. As a fellow lover of connection and also of our dear friendship, I am beaming at that answer. I'm excited to connect with you today. I also feel like you got up to the second question that I have, which is what is the question you're currently living into? Is that the question you're currently living into?
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember I filled out your form and I don't even remember what question I put in it, honestly. And that's probably what was present for me in the moment. And then this is a new moment for me. And I think the question that I'm most living into is what value do I want to create? How do I want to help myself and people at this moment in my life? And I think um that's the prominent question. It's maybe not the sexiest or most interesting answer at the moment, but it really is the one that I'm living in. And if I said anything else, it would be a lie.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Our questions don't need to be the sexiest question because this is the messy part of life, right? The questions we're
Yeah.
living into are the unknown pieces and yeah, that like vulnerable moment of just being where we are.
I think a
Um,
deeper version of that actually probably a more true version of that is what I'm doing. Does what I'm doing matter?
hmm, yeah, that's powerful. What is your feeling right now, or what does it look like to live into that question as you ask it, even in this moment?
I don't know. And
Mm.
that's what's got me like uh you know, hopefully you weren't looking for this to be like an inspirational
No,
conversation because it's not.
it's supposed to be human.
I don't know. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to at each transition in my career and at each transition in my career, I've been really fortunate enough to have relationships that have helped me build a quote unquote successful career around it,
Mm.
meaning income, right? And connections and opportunities. And so that's been really cool. And I'm just in the question of like, well, is what I'm doing, does it matter? Does it actually create true value for people? Um, is it worth the limited time that I have in this life? My family, we've experienced a lot of death in this year, 2024, close people to us, and it really brings to the forefront um, that this is finite.
Mhm.
It's not going to last forever, and you don't know when it's going to end. And how do you want to spend those minutes? How do you want to spend those days and those hours? Um, and so how am I living into that question? I'm exploring. I'm
Mhm.
open. At times it's like it shows up as a depressing question because
Mhm.
it's like, all right, I'm 41 and I don't have this figured out. And I can make up that everybody else has it figured out. And um and so at times it shows up as like shitty, like just like, oh man. what are you going to do? Are you going to grow up? Are you going to like choose something? Are you going to stick with something? Is it like, all that sort of stuff? Or, and then at other times it's like exciting. It's like, well, man, look, the world is yours. Go figure out whatever you want to figure out. Um, so I mean, yeah, that's how I'm living into it right now. I think it depends on the minute.
Yeah. But so much richness I'm hearing in what you're saying. Like you're allowing yourself to be present with what it is in any given moment. It potentially touches back to grief, right? Like you were saying, the alchemizing of death, that like real grounding moment of being presented with death in life of those close and dear to us. I've found with that, and I'm curious of your experience where it just sort of made everything feel like, um, what is life even? Like all of this
Hmm.
is made up. Like it just
Hmm.
like shattered any illusion of what I had constructed life to be and some safety that I had kind of created. It just brought that down to size, and then there's this huge abyss now that I'm looking at in front of me. And what do we do with that?
Yeah.
And so I feel that in what you were saying. And then also the beauty of being like, some days I'm shitty to myself when I'm when I'm in this question, because there are so many things that we can get up to, like the limitations of these constructions we've made, like age and what we need to have together at a certain time, quote unquote. Um,
Yeah.
and then also the beauty of the vast expanse in front of us of we do get to make it whatever we want to if we're lucky enough. And so I hear all of those
Yeah.
questions in there, if I'm getting you right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Kate, my wife, Katie,
Love.
uh, her mom passed away unexpectedly in September, August. I think it was August. Um, we were out hiking and riding ATVs and rock climbing with her on Saturday.
Mm.
And then we got a call from her dad on Sunday morning at 5:30 a.m. saying that she was dead. And Katie keeps saying, in her grief and moments and just like contemplating on things, it's like, she's just like, she just disappeared. It's like she just disappeared. It's so weird. It's like, and it's like that shift there's a huge shift in perspective that I think you're talking about, where it's like the world never existed to her without her mom.
Mhm.
And now she just disappeared. And I think for me, it, I find a lot of like peace in Stoic philosophy. And one of the principles in Stoic philosophy is around the idea that once you're gone, I mean, maybe a select few people will still talk to you, but really it's done.
Mhm.
It's over, right? And that can be depressing at times, because that can really make me ask the question, like, does the work that I'm doing matter? Do the relationships matter? All of that sort of stuff. And it's also really relieving of like, well, you can just make this yours. This whole thing that you're toiling over, this whole life thing, being wanting to be successful financially, wanting to make a name for yourself, wanting to build something meaningful, want to make a difference, all of that stuff that I aspire to, um, eventually it's just like all going to disappear. And so what do I want to experience? What do I want to create? What do I want to enjoy while I'm here? Not like it's going to make some big difference or dent in the world, but like, and not in a hedonistic way, or not in a like a, um, doesn't that question doesn't drive me to want to do like a bunch of shitty things to people just because I would enjoy them or have some pleasure, enjoyment are two different things. Um, for me. Uh, but yeah, I mean that idea is like, well, um, I don't know what will remain after me. And the other interesting thing about this too is like there's so much beautiful opportunity right in front of me that I miss
Mm.
because of these big ambitions, right? It's
Yes.
like I might not make a dent in the world at large that lives longer than me, but man, my kids are gonna think
Mm.
about me
Mhm.
after I'm gone, hopefully.
Mhm.
And so I think I know I miss opportunities to invest in them and pay attention to them for these other ideals. And ultimately that's what's probably going to bring the most joy.
Mm. Ooh. Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge the loss that you've had this year. I'm so sorry for that. There's no words, really. And it is an invitation we never really want to receive, to now decide what we're going to create life as afterwards. And so thank you for sharing um, that part of your year, your story, your heart here and with me. It's something that I feel like is necessary to talk about. It's hard and uncomfortable sometimes, and we don't know how to be with it as humans. And I would love for us to know how to be with it because it's inevitable for us all. So thank you for
Yeah.
not shying away from that conversation. But then also what it invites for you, like the shattering of these markers that we create, like we're going to arrive somewhere. And what happens, what freedom happens for us all when we remove that? What connection is possible when we remove the limitations that are here?
Mm,
What is the real thing that we want to experience if we're a spirit in human form or whatever you believe this life is? If it
yeah.
is this one and done, what are we here to experience? What do we want to experience? How do we want to choose to be with the experiences that also meet us? And that's something I'm hearing in the question that you're living into, if I'm hearing you right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, death is an interesting thing, right? I mean, I think it's a really Western mindset that we avoid the topic of death
Hmm.
and that we're scared of it. And
Yeah.
that, it's like almost taboo or we don't know what to say or, all of that sort of stuff. That's really like a pretty Western mentality. I mean, in
Yeah.
other cultures, obviously, I mean, some people mourn with the body for 10 days before they even do anything with it, bury it or whatever whatever's norm in their culture. And um I've been thinking a lot about that too. It's like maybe that disconnection with death doesn't serve us as much as we think it does.
Mhm.
Maybe if we were more comfortable with the idea of death and talked about it more and weren't didn't shy away from what we experience in it and all of that sort of stuff, that I don't know, maybe it's possible that we would um focus more on connection, focus more on living right now and cherish like the little things rather than like the superficial things or the self-aggrandizing things like um, becoming popular on social media or building a big business or all of that sort of. I don't know that to be true. It's just like something that I'm thinking a lot about. It's like, wow, I wonder what it would be like if it were different. When last not this last not January 24, but January 23, my really close friend and partner lost his grandson at 2 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a freak accident. There was a windstorm and a tree fell on their house and fell on the Eon, this little boy. And I got to witness. I mean, I'm in, he's a business partner of mine, Dan Tacchini, and he shut everything down. Like I mean, we kept working the business, but he was out and he said, you're not even going to hear from me until I don't know when, but I'll keep you updated.
Hmm.
Not that we weren't going to hear from him. We were supporting him and having conversations, but around the business, like
Yeah.
he said, like, I'm out. Like I'm going to go mourn with my family.
Hmm.
And they rented a house in Northern California and they all came together and they lived in that house together for a couple of months and they just mourned the death of Eon and they told stories. I mean, he said they told stories, they laughed, they cried, they got angry, they yelled, anything that was in their presence, like in their space and whatever like they were feeling was totally acceptable by everybody in the mourning process. And I just watching from afar and being an observer of that process for all of them, and then seeing how each one of them came out on the other end of that. Not that they're out of it, but I don't know that you're ever out of that. But the progress isn't the right word either. The evolution
Yeah, yeah.
of their way of being with it and their outlook on life and what they decided to do with their time after that has been an enormous gift to me. And it prepped me, really, it really prepped me for my dad passing this January, Katie's mom passing in August. Um, and yeah, it's been a very, very interesting, transformative, still in the middle of the transformation. I'm still in that like that gnashing of teeth, like I don't want this. It's gonna make something of me, I'm sure, but I do not want this. This fucking sucks. And um, yeah, it's weird how life preps you in those ways, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't know until you kind of trace back time and you see how it connects. There's also a phrase I've been saying post death, although it applies to many things, but it came out of a death experience where I've just been saying, please give me the wisdom without the chaos, because I feel like I've noticed the depth of wisdom that has come from being with things like deaths in life and,
Mhm.
um, painful moments in life and loss. And I also have that real feeling of I would give that back in a heartbeat to have this person back or this being
Mhm.
back. And I also see how that wisdom has created a more deep version of who I am, a more present version of who I am, a wiser version of who I am, a more, you know, I just feel more connected to me, and I still would want to give it back. And so it's this combination of things that I hear in that gnashing of teeth too in what you're saying. And my phrase has just been, can I have the wisdom without the chaos, please? Is that
Yeah,
possible?
yeah. It's like, don't let me miss this opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's really what's under there. And it's hard. It's hard to be with it. The same reason why we're talking about, death being a tricky thing that we probably try to hide from is that it's painful. And when we're in the depths of sorrow, I don't know that I've ever experienced a deeper moment of wanting to like grab for anything that would make me feel not that. That moment felt so humbling as a human. I felt like I understood why anyone would want to just shut that down because it feels impossible to be with.
Hmm.
And and the you know and unfortunately we're being asked to be with it, and there is no answer of how long it lasts or how to necessarily walk through it. It's just the fact that it's a part of being a human. And um can we be with our can we not abandon ourselves in that moment and get the resources we need to be with that is a really big question and ask for ourselves. Like I still feel it right now as
Hmm.
I just said that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a, there's like a convenient way I want this to look.
yeah.
Particularly it comes up a lot with Katie and I, in relationship to her just mourning the death of her mom, the sudden death of her mom. And it's a wave, you know. My friend Whitney Popa wrote a book called The Wave Called Grief.
Mm-hmm.
And that title is just like, when she announced it, it like hit me. It was like, oh my gosh, that's what it is, the wave called grief. Because there's like, in my quote unquote perfect world, I want grieving to happen and then move on. And
Yeah.
then like, can we just get back to normal life now? Can we
Mm,
just get back to like, when whatever? I don't even know what normal life is. There isn't such a thing.
mm,
But it's shown up as an inconvenience for me so often. And it's really, I don't like saying that about myself. Like I don't like saying that, and it's just true.
yeah.
And so, particularly for Katie, it just comes in waves. And
Mhm,
the waves of um disconnection and shutdown and depression and all of that sort of stuff come at what seem to be the most inconvenient times. Inconvenient for me, right?
mhm,
Because I've got an agenda or some idea of how I think things should look.
mhm,
And so even that alone has been a training for me. And I've missed it lots, way too many times. I've missed it. Still do. Like, miss the opportunity to just be okay with it. Like, you can't fight the ocean.
mhm. Whew.
Anybody that's spent any time in the ocean, you can't fight the ocean. It will fucking win.
Yeah.
And so the more you surrender to the movement of the ocean, the more peace you can find, the more safety you can find, the more possibility of survival you have. And I think that's a huge lesson. I think the question that I filled out on your form was, what am I missing? Maybe. Was
Mm.
that it?
I need to
I
go back
think
and look. I should have written, this is
doesn't
something I
matter.
should have written down because I wanted it to be what you had right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a great prompt because it got me thinking, but that question keeps coming back to me in this experience of loving Katie deeply and wanting to support her, and fighting my own tendencies to like see this as an inconvenience or something that's like getting in the way of us living our life. And the question, what am I missing, is a reconnection moment for me. It's like, oh, there's so much I'm not seeing. There's so much that I don't understand. And if I will stop and listen, I can understand some of it. And I can also be okay not understanding a lot of it. And it doesn't like the ability to be with it in a meaningful way, support her. It does not need to be contingent on me understanding it.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
that's been, I mean, that has been a lesson for me in so many realms of my life. Even currently in this moment that we're in, when we're talking about politics, or we talk about business, or we talk about relationships or death or whatever, it's like, you don't need to understand all of it. You never will understand all of it. Are you willing to just listen? Are you willing to be with it and investigate it in a way that doesn't make it right or wrong, or any of that stuff, that the camps that we want to put, our mind wants to put things in, but just be with it in a way that, I don't know, there's discovery, there's curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I really love. I learned the skills of relating recently, and like recently being in the last couple of years. And it has been revolutionary for me. It's actually the basis of what I want to get up to in these conversations, in these podcasts is, can it be less of an interview and more of relating, where it is listening, it's active listening, but I'm also here present to have the conversation with you. I don't lose myself to just be here with you in this conversation. I invite you forward and I can go after understanding of where you are. Um, and I think I know for me, I was missing that piece a lot, where I felt like, okay, I need to really pay attention so that I have something for the next moment when I'm talking. And then I'm missing, like you're saying, like I'm missing so
Mhm.
much of what you're bringing. I don't need to already have something locked and loaded. I don't need to have understanding over everything you've said before we have the conversation. Part of having the conversation is me getting to ask you what you have and understand more and get deeper and not need to know all the things. That's putting a ton of pressure on me that's so not necessary. And I'm the only one doing that
Yeah.
to myself. And so I love that releasing of needing to know, needing to understand ahead of time and showing up authentically with curiosity and regard and empathetic listening and yeah, and just being available to know someone else and be known if that's what you have in that moment, like really getting congruent with that. Um,
Yeah.
I love that. I'm so after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. It's funny because it's, part of the work that I've been so lucky to do is to mediate conflict in the business realm. So, um, I'm often with my clients find myself in the middle of some sort of conflict that needs to be worked out, whether it's business partners or executives that don't agree, or different scenarios. And um, I always start the conversation with with that question,
Mhm.
inviting them into that question, to keep the posture of, I wonder what I'm missing. I wonder what I haven't seen. And I always do a visual. It's typically on Zoom like this. And I use this camera back here. I'll do it. But what I do is I basically, it's hard to do on Zoom, but in person it's easier. So I hold the camera up like this,
Mhm.
and I ask one of them to look at it, right, and describe the object to me, and then I turn the camera like this, and I ask the other person to describe the object to me.
Mhm.
And for those of that are just listening, I just flip the camera around. So as you know, you all know what a camera is. One side's going to have a bunch of knobs and a lens, and all of that. And describe it describe it by shapes, and as if you didn't know exactly what it was. And then when I turn it around, it's really quite plain and simple. And there's two holes that you could look through, and then you obviously use that object lesson or that experience as like, we can be looking at the same thing and see something totally different.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity is for me to come around, to get shoulder to shoulder with you, and to look at it from your perspective and have you describe it to me from your perspective, and then you come around shoulder to shoulder with me and look at it with me, so that I can describe my perspective, and then we can get a much fuller picture of what we're actually dealing with, what we're actually trying to accomplish. And it's really a meaningful experience when we just ask ourselves, like, I wonder what I'm missing, because I come with my stories. I
Mhm.
come with my experience, my stack of concerns. I come with everything that colors my view,
Mhm.
and that's totally different than what you come with, Courtney.
Mhm.
And I can only benefit by hearing
Mhm.
what it is that you come with,
Mhm.
but that shows up initially as a threat,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, no, I'm right. This is what it looks like. And you're like, no, I'm right. This is what it looks like. And that becomes threatening, obviously, to the ego, and to ultimately it's an innate thing that's written into our bones, because we grew up, or we evolved in societies, small societies, that if you didn't fall in line, if you weren't right, if you didn't create value, you were ostracized, and ostracization meant death.
Mhm.
And so in our bones, we still believe that, but it's not true any longer. So that need to be right, that need to be validated is really innate. But I think my experience is that if we're willing to ask ourselves, like, what am I missing? Can I come to it from your perspective? That's an opportunity for true survival now. And
Mhm.
then we can create something meaningful together. So anyway, I don't even know how I got on that, but that
I
was fun.
love this. Survival now to shift to that. Oh, so good. I'm going to write that down after to rehab off because that's such a big deal to shift what our survival mechanisms have been, both on a societal level and epigenetically, and then also to say, what have I learned over time that I use to protect myself in relationships of any kind? Um, which yeah, it really can hinder our connection. Or stuff where I've talked a lot in the past about people pleasing and perfectionism and the stuff that comes up there to block us is feeling like you can't actually just be yourself, or you have to be agreeable, you have to always agree, and so you're leaving your reality that, like you said, has so much value to offer, to be in someone else's, to fit in it, and almost forget. Like you genuinely, you're like, your nervous system is so good at this. We'll just forget the pieces that don't match. And so
Hmm.
you are convinced I am agreeable here because I don't want to die, right? Like
Hmm.
whatever that
That's
might
right.
mean.
Yeah.
And so to come back to this and dare to be in your reality and share that with someone else and see that you survive it, whatever that may look like, is so powerful. And
Hmm.
also, you may feel like you don't survive it if someone is so disagreeable with you. Like that may be a hard moment to get beyond. I'm speaking from experience. It is not
Oh yeah.
always pleasant. Like it doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
And
And,
yet, yeah.
and I think to trust that you'll find the fit
Hmm.
somewhere. It doesn't have to be with the person that's in front of you now,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And I think that's one of the things, at least for me, in my experience, when I have participated in people pleasing, is like I want to force the fit.
Mm,
Um, and because then that means we're successful, or that means we're, I don't know, whatever other things I make up about. If if you like me, that's really probably the biggest thing, is
for
like,
sure.
if you like me, I'm successful.
Mm,
um and I can live another day in this society. And ultimately, I think the forcing the the desire to force that fit with another person is what drives us to do some funky things,
yeah.
like people pleasing or steamrolling, or they're all different sides of the same coin, which is all like, I'm afraid that I won't belong.
Mm, hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that actually is curious to me of like when we step into who we are, we're asking someone to meet us there and maybe they don't, right? Like
Yeah.
and that's okay, but it's like allowing that to be okay, but
Yeah.
also not being afraid to have that invitation. And it's not like you're directly saying it, maybe you are, but really by just stepping into who you are, that invites the question of meet me here. Would you like to meet me here? Which is a really powerful invitation we each can bring to each other. But damn, it's brave. It's so brave.
it's it's true vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, when I think of vulnerability these days, I think of it almost like the soft underbelly of an animal. I don't know why I picture it that way, but it's just like that tender part that can easily feel pain or
Yeah.
easily be hurt. Um, and yet that's where I feel like I've found the really good stuff in life. The really connected, when I feel alive moments have happened in vulnerability, even when they've been considerably painful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, simply put, for me, vulnerability is risking my belonging.
Mm, hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
And when I when I'm not vulnerable, and I'm have plenty of those experiences in my life, I experience something that simulates belonging,
Mm,
but it's not true belonging because there's one person who still knows that I'm not being authentic,
Hmm.
and that's me.
Yeah.
So I don't belong. A version of me belongs,
Ooh.
or a mask or a whatever terminology you want to use is like that thing belongs with this group, but not me. And if they truly knew me, I wouldn't belong. And so it's not the same experience as actually risking your belonging by being truly vulnerable, just being who you are.
Oh, even hearing it, like I feel it in my system. I've learned like as a highly sensitive individual that I like feel I don't just feel what somebody else might be experiencing, but like even as we're describing a scenario, I feel it in my system where like my nervous system is tensed up. And
Mm.
that's a big thing to overcome when you like feel clammed up and have to dare to be seen. And sometimes it's not safe, right, to be seen. So we do have that as a helpful tool still. But I would say so many more times we're misunderstanding what is a threat in our lives, and it keeps us small, it keeps us blocked, it keeps us masked, it keeps us disconnected. And I think that um, yeah, it's such a disservice to our heart, to our soul, to the things that we're probably wanting to get up to is the core of what belonging is actually about, I would say, too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned safety. Safety is a really interesting thing that I am really exploring. I mean,
Mhm.
most of the work that I do now is in corporations, mostly in the tech space. And I think I don't know this to be true, but just my experience, I think there's like some interesting ideas around what safety is and what
Mhm.
safety isn't.
Yeah.
And one of the ideas that I'm really playing with, and I don't know the answer to, but I've got a lot of thoughts on, is does safety actually exist
Hmm.
outside of your own courage?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that to be true. And sometimes, uh, as illustrated by history, safety is actually, or the idea or sense of safety is the thing that actually is our undoing.
Mhm.
Um, because people who promise you safety often take advantage of what that looks like. It's like, trust me, I'll offer you safety. Trust me for your safety. Now I can take advantage of you.
Mhm.
And so I get a little weird when I hear people like talking about seeking safety.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if that's the most meaningful conversation or if the most meaningful conversation is courage and resilience and those sort of things. Because I mean, physically, there are things we can do to um, protect ourselves, I think,
Mhm.
but we can't fully be safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the crazy powers that are, not to go dark, but the crazy powers that are today could choose to push one button, and that could
Mhm.
mean total annihilation of our civilization.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, that's not safety.
Mhm.
Um, so it's interesting. I'm curious for you when you talk about safety, what you mean.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned this because it is a word that feels really um, like there's so much nuance and complexity to it that just saying it doesn't actually encompass enough of what it means. So I love that you brought this to the surface because to me, when I say safety, it feels like I feel like I'm being very specific about it, and I think I should probably put a word to this where when I mean safety, it's not perceived safety. It's like you're in a life or death situation. Like you're in an abusive relationship, say, and the
Mm,
safety of your life depends on needing to mask potentially in a situation to then get yourself to safety. You're utilizing that skill because there is a legitimate threat. Not to
Yeah.
say that there is definitive safety or not, just using it as kind of those
Yeah.
contexts. But I do think that there could be, um, this is where my etymological nerd can come out and find out what word roots down that would be
Yep.
actually probably better to use.
I love it. I'm here for it. I love etymology.
Yeah. Because I agree. I think we get trapped by the idea or fantasy of what safety is, when really, like what we're talking about today, living the questions, is there is no certainty. There is no, everything is unknown, really. We're just living into it. And so I think that many times we mistake safety with certainty, and
Mm,
some of that gets conflated in a way that's not helpful for
yeah.
us and keeps us stuck as humans.
Yeah. It's a great distinction. Um, I've thought a lot about the differences between safety and certainty. Um, and certainly I think there are some things that can uh, hedge danger for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's also like this element of life, which is like the more challenge you experience, there it's like challenge is like a crossroads, right?
Mm-hmm.
You either face it in a courageous way, and whatever that looks like, I don't make any judgment of what that looks like. I mean, we'd have to get really specific, but like we either face the challenge in a really courageous way, or we let it, I guess, force us into a direction that isn't courageous, that doesn't require risk, or perceived risk, and like each moment, each challenge, we're faced with that decision, and I think, I don't know, just the human experience. I don't even know where I was going with that, but it just occurred to me. What were we saying? It occurred to me that like there's this decision to be made at each challenge, at each challenge, and there's like a perceived safe decision, and there's a perceived
Mm-hmm.
risk. And I think here's what I was going for. It's like I think the moments in my life where I've chose what felt like the riskier decision in the face of a challenge, which felt true to me, and but also the more difficult path, that's where I've learned the most, that's where I've grown the most, that's where I've like felt, if nothing else, just true to myself,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And then the times when I chose like this, what felt like the safe road, learn from those too, I guess, but don't feel as true to myself, in integrity, integral,
Mhm.
connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, integrity is such a big word to bring into play there too, because it also sounds like it's more of it's even less of like an either or almost. And it sounds like, am I am I being true to myself? Am I being honest with myself? Am I, like, can I trust myself?
Mm.
Is
Mhm.
something I'm hearing under what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And that is a massive question. I actually have a post-it note, like literally on my computer, that says trust yourself. So this is this is an apt moment.
Well, and I think that's probably part of what I'm experiencing right now is low trust in myself.
Hmm.
In like the current moment, in what I'm
Mhm.
currently experiencing, is like low trust in myself in ways.
Mhm.
Um I in the past have done a bunch of men's retreats, as you know,
Mhm.
and that's been a really incredible experience. And one of the biggest challenges that men face is confidence. I think that's a human thing. I don't know that it's a man thing, but I think it's dominant in the male psyche around like, am I confident in myself? And there's so much pressure around what confidence is and what it's supposed to look like and all of that sort of stuff and how you get it. And the misinterpretation often is confidence looks like taking control,
Mm.
um, or not giving a shit what other people think about you, or all of that like worldly, popular vernacular around confidence. And really, what confidence is for me is trust in yourself.
Mm.
And so it led me to a deep dive of like what causes confidence? How do I gain confidence? And is that even true that I do gain it? Or
Mm.
is it a choice? Like can I choose now in this moment to be confident, or do I have to go on some quest to build
Mm.
it and create it and all of that sort of stuff? And the best answer that I have come to for myself, is that confidence is chosen, but the way that it's chosen is to keep your word to yourself.
Mm.
Meaning, if I tell myself that I'm going to do something, when I do it, I choose confidence. When I don't do it, I lose confidence, or I don't choose confidence. I have lack of confidence.
Mm.
And yeah. So even right now, I'm like inspecting in myself. It's like if I'm experiencing, if my theory is true, and that's just a theory, I'm not saying it's true.
Mm.
But if it is true, if I'm experiencing a lack of trust in myself, uh, where am I not keeping my word with myself?
Mm. Which sounds like such a beautiful, loving question and relationship, like question to yourself and relationship with yourself. Like I hear you continuing to build a relationship with yourself that's deeply regarding of who you are and what you have and choosing to love yourself well in the process of the unknown and in the questions.
Yeah, yeah. I do think when I keep my, and maybe that's a weird phrase for people, keep your word with yourself. But when I do choose to keep my word with myself, and I believe that's the greatest expression of love.
Hmm. Yeah.
I do. And I think that's external as well.
Hmm.
When we keep our word, like we live our word, like when we say we're going to do something, or when we say we're going to be something, that we are.
Hmm.
And that's, in my relationship with you, Courtney, or my relationship with Katie, or my kids. I know it shows up for people if you have kids, and it's really visceral when you have kids, of like, do you say what you're going to say? Do you do what you say you're going to do?
Hmm.
And even in parenthood and marriage or committed relationship, I even think it goes beyond what you say. I also think there's inherent promises that are there.
Hmm.
And are you keeping those?
Ooh.
So I may be really good at like with my little boy Milo, I may be really good at like doing what I say I'm going to do,
Hmm.
but am I also keeping my inherent promises with him as a father, as the role of a father, the promises that I made when I stepped into that role. Um, anyway, so I do think that's the greatest expression of love.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I have so much that I want I want to dive into around that because I also feel like I just finished rereading the book, Bell Hooks's book, All About Love, and it was such a great reminder to my soul of um, just how powerful love is and what a driving factor it is in our life, and how easily it can be dismissed as fantasy or whatever we make it to be, and how it actually, at the root of all things, at the root of who we are as human beings, is so foundational and such a part of our purpose and such a part of grounding who we are as humans. And it is a worthy topic, a worthy part of life to dive into and learn more about and go after embodying. And so as you're describing this to me, like with promises too, I feel like that is part of the definition that she described in love, which is responsibility and respect alongside care and alongside all of the other elements that we include in love. And
Mhm.
I think that that's that integrity piece. That's the taking responsibility piece. Um, that is a part of love that we miss sometimes as the definition. It's kind of like a catch-all word, love, but we, in the same way we were talking about redefining safety, or the word safe, it's like love could be really redefined because it has become this bigger thing that really we could hone in because it's so powerful and necessary to do so, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's like, that leads me to the idea of self-love,
Hmm.
right? So, same sort of conversation in my mind. It's like the greatest expression of self-love would be keeping the integrity, keeping the word that I have with myself.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that self love for you impacts the way you're able to be with and relate with others and love others?
Oh, certainly.
Mm,
I think that's true. Um, yeah, absolutely. Like, I think the question, we could rephrase the question. If my theory is true, we could rephrase the question of like, can I be in integrity with others if I'm not in integrity with myself?
yeah.
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I haven't experienced it if it's possible.
Hmm.
Um, I think the inherent shame
Hmm.
of being out of integrity with myself blocks any possibility, not any possibility, but it blocks the possibility of me being fully in integrity with other people.
Yeah. How have you lived into that question of like taking good care of self and living in integrity with yourself when what you have said that makes you most alive is connection, is that
Yeah.
integrity with others?
Yeah, that's a great question because I was just thinking about them like this is really we're talking really philosophically and then how does that one actually like apply this? How do
Yeah.
we actually, and I think this is what I'm struggling with in this conversation is that I think, and I don't think I'm unique, but I'll just talk from my own experiences that I think I'm in and out of integrity with myself constantly,
Hmm.
right? It's like, and I'm constantly both keeping my word to myself in ways and not keeping my word to myself in other ways. And does that prevent me from loving others? I don't know. Maybe I don't think so. I don't know. I think it's honesty in that process with myself of like being willing to be like, okay, you're not integrity on this thing with yourself right now. And what's it going to take to get back there? So, and honesty, I think, is one of our most challenging. I think I just find honesty to be challenging. I just will
Yeah.
be honest about it. It's like when I say, and I don't mean that I find myself lying to people. I do find myself lying to myself often
Hmm.
um, about you know what I actually want. What well, a good example. Let's like a real life example, right? I go in and out of this thing of I mean I'll have a drink tequila soda lime is my
Fun.
flavor. And I'll have a drink 2 or 3 times a week, maybe twice a week, and it's been this like pattern of me telling I don't even know why I do it because I don't love the way it makes me feel. It doesn't help my mental state um I mean there's a million reasons not to like it. It's poison for God's sake. Like um and so I just go in and out of these or no, not going in and out. It's been a pattern of me saying like I'm just gonna stop. Like I don't, at least for a while. and just see how I feel and, all of that sort of stuff. And then I'll tell Katie, and then Friday afternoon comes and I'm out running errands, and I stop and grab a bottle of tequila and some limes and some soda water. And I think it, that doesn't that absolutely affects my ability to show up for other people.
Mm.
And I don't know why, or I don't know how, but it absolutely does. I know it does. Um, and it doesn't make me a better person. It doesn't improve my life. It definitely doesn't improve my confidence for sure. Cause
Mhm.
like, then, I'll have a drink on Friday night, um, and then Saturday, I'm like, "Wow, why can't you do this?
Mm.
You know?"
Mhm.
And that chips away. And then I'm sure that comes out. I don't know exactly how. I couldn't draw a direct line, but I know that comes out in the way that I show up for Katie, in the way that I show up for my kids, in the way that I show up for you as a friend. Um, it can't be good. I don't know. I can't put my finger on or be specific about what it does, but it certainly doesn't help. Um, I don't know. Did I answer your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah. Well, again, this is so less about answering questions and more about exploring. And what I what I heard in there too, which feels so powerful to me, was this part about the small things. I'm putting small in quotes here, build. And so our small decisions, or what may feel like a small decision in our life, builds and is connected, and potentially all of our decisions are connected. And what does that mean when that's the case? Because I'm hearing what you're saying, like this one decision here actually impacts so much more. This one decision here creates a conversation within myself where, like I hear that like drill sergeant, or like
Hmm.
self-beratement and
Yeah.
and shame of like, why can't you do this,
Yeah.
In, instead of whatever, it's not an either or, but like something that actually would potentially help you, how you would talk to Milo, or how you would talk to me, or or Katie, or anyone in that circumstance would be wildly different, I
Oh yeah, for
imagine.
sure. Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like,
I might be
oh,
thinking it, but I wouldn't say it.
right. Right. And
I've got a
that's
few friends where I'm like, why do you keep doing this?
which in that moment too, it's like, what would it look like to be mildly honest? But that's the thing. It's like, even being honest with ourselves about how we're talking to ourselves, are we doing that? Or are we stuck in the loop of just berating
Mm.
ourselves too? Like, I feel like there's so many curious questions within this of of what you're living into and what you're wanting to live into, and where you are, and getting to be where you are, and meet yourself with that integrity, even in the small quote unquote moment of how you even respond to yourself when you still got the tequila.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, that is so powerful to me. There's something, I hear the invitation there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's been there for a long time,
Hmm.
right? It's like just keeps like being like, hey, if you want this, if you
Hmm.
it feels like the universe being like, hey, if you want a discovery, if you want
Hmm.
something new, here you go. This is for you. And I keep being like, no, fuck no. I don't want anything new.
No.
I don't want to discover anything new. I don't want the prize at the end of that rainbow.
Ooh. They're tough invitations though, because even when I say small, I'm putting it in quotes for a reason, because it feels uncomfortable, which
Yeah.
always feels big, like bigger than the moment. I feel like discomfort feels large.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we make it a lot larger than it is.
Yeah,
I think the
I agree.
anticipation of discomfort
Mhm.
is much more devastating than the actual discomfort itself.
Right. Yeah, that's true. We're in discomfort prior to even the moment that
Yeah.
discomfort would present itself.
But look,
That's
that's true in a lot of ways. I mean, even scientifically, the the anticipation of pleasure on the
hmm,
brain is a lot more impactful. The way that it shapes the brain and the thinking is a
hmm,
lot more impactful than the actual moment of pleasure.
hmm. Interesting. Which, in that sense, see, this is when I'm like, but pleasure's so much more fun. So then extending it is lovely, but discomfort, it's detrimental.
But I'm just saying, I think that might be true too, is like the anticipation of discomfort is way
Mm,
more impactful than the actual discomfort itself.
yeah.
It's like that's part of the work that I do with a lot of people is like getting them. It's so funny hearing me talk about where I'm not willing to step into discomfort because that's what I do in my life is I help people step into discomfort. And what I notice over and over and over again is them saying, "Wow, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be."
Mm,
It's like
mhm,
having that conversation, quitting that thing, starting that thing. It's like, oh, wow, yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
mm. And yet,
And yet here we are
every time
over and over and over again. It's a lifelong lesson, man.
it
It's not
is.
like we're going to get rid of this. So,
No, well, there's a, did you ever hear of the unconscious competence to conscious, no, wrong way. Uh, Unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence
yeah,
scale. And
yeah,
I love that so much. So for anyone who hasn't heard it, it's just basically, and I heard it with, potty training a child. And so the idea of unconscious incompetence is when they're unable to go to the bathroom and they're dependent on you to take care of all of that. And then conscious incompetence is almost making it to the bathroom, being aware that they're going to the bathroom. And then obviously conscious competence is being able to go to the bathroom, and unconscious competence is where we are now as
yeah,
adults, being able to just go and not think about it. So I
yeah,
find myself going back to that line over and over again to remind myself, oh, I'm in conscious incompetence right now. Oh, like I just caught it after the fact. And okay, next time. And like, I think that that gives me more trust in myself too when I struggle with self trust. I think it gives me some space to have grace around that beratement or inner drill sergeant when it comes up, which I've been trying to communicate to and say, I see that you're trying to protect me and also you're hurting me. And I want to let you know that you're hurting me. And that's been helpful to
mhm.
reframe that dialogue. Um, but yeah, I actually lost where I was trying to go. I got excited about unconscious incompetence. But all to say, yes, it's a continued journey. We're never arriving, like we were talking about this in with the conversation of death and grief. It's like, what if we let that go, that limitation go of needing to arrive at a place, needing it to look a certain way, and lean into this is the experience of life. It is being in questions. It is continually, you know, like learning from our experience over and over again and meeting each moment with new wisdom if we have it available to us.
Agreed.
Yeah. Oof. I want to talk to you for 40 million years, and I know that we're at time, but I want to ask you, did you get up to what you were wanting to get up to in our conversation today, if you knew what you wanted to get up to?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I just wanted to connect with you.
I
So,
love that.
um, I experienced it.
I love that. And is there anything that you're taking away in terms of how you will continue to live into the questions in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think realizing or being reminded that there is some stuff to clean up in my life if I
Mm,
want the next. I started. It's interesting the circle of this conversation for me, starting talking about like I don't know what's next.
Mhm.
I'm looking, I'm wondering where to make the impact, and then also and then finishing on there's things in my life that are offering an invitation for discovery, but I'm not taking advantage of those. And so
Mm.
I am saying I want discovery, and fuck you to the universe for the ways that it's inviting me to get those discoveries. So,
So
so
human.
that's a paradox, and definitely an opportunity for me to take advantage of some of those.
I love that. Thank you so much for exploring that in space with me. I love jamming with you all the time, and to get to see you, yeah, really dive in and get curious and to get to play in that space and mirror back things and learn so much more about life and philosophize, but also bring it back down to, some practical things. I really appreciate where we journeyed. And I can't wait for more on and off of this podcast. And also, if anyone is looking for connection with you, where can they find that or go after that?
Mm. You can find me on LinkedIn. Um, that's I use messaging there a lot. I don't post there much. I got rid of all social media off of my phone in the beginning of this year, and that's been a godsend. That's been amazing.
Mhm.
So I do have accounts on there, but I won't be seeing anything that happens there. And email me, chat
Mhm.
at chadlbrown.com. I'd love to hear from you, whatever you have to say. That'd be a fun adventure. Um, but yeah, same back to you. Thanks, Courtney. When I saw the invitation, I was like, yes,
Mhm.
this sounds fun, and it was fun, and I appreciate you, and I'm excited to see what you do with this, where it goes, what not even where it goes, just that you're doing it. Like that's
Mhm.
exciting in and of itself. So, thanks for extending the invitation.
Thank you for your yes. That's the biggest honor. And yeah, I'm just humbled by it and so grateful for this time and to get to explore with you. This is the experience I'm wanting to go after in life. So your yes made it possible. So thank you.